Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for our first MarkLogic event of 2024. We're really pleased to see everybody here today. And we're really pleased to be joined by Matthieu Jonglez later on to talk through our product. But first of all, I just wanted to recap on our last event that we had at the back end of 2023. We had a session focused on a technology aspect of MarkLogic. So we were focused around geospatial. We had clever llamas come along and talk about the sort of broad brush of what MarkLogic can do in terms of geospatial capabilities, and they went through some use cases and how to start down that road. We were really pleased to see Sensing Clues come and talk to everybody about how they're using geospatial to actually protect wildlife and habitats around the world. And we had our own guys, Christian and Mitch, talk about our first public demo of Fast Track, which I'm sure we'll come on to later on today as well. So if you haven't had a chance to catch up with that event, please do go to YouTube and look for MarkLogic Community Playlist, and you'll find a playlist with all of the details on all the previous events that we've hosted, or you can use the on-screen QR code if you like. Today's session really is a discussion around the features that we are and roadmap for 2024. We would really love to hear questions from you guys about what you're hearing, what you would like to see in the product going forward, your thoughts, anything you like. Please use the GoToWebinar question panel. If it's not shown up, you can fly it out on screen and enter your questions in there. And with that, let's make a start then. So we're really pleased today to be joined by Matthieu Jonglez to talk through the upcoming year at Progress, what we've got coming forward, what our plans are, the general kind of direction that we're traveling in. Matthieu is our VP of Technology here at MarkLogic, so I don't think there's any one better place to give you an insight on what's happening. So first of all, welcome. Perhaps you could start by giving us some background on you and your role.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and welcome to everyone that's joining the call. I was just looking at the list of attendees, and there's quite a few of you I recognize from partner meetings, customer engagements, road trips, conferences, etc. So nice to speak to you all. Hopefully, you're going to spare me in some of your questions. We'll see that at the end. What's my role today, and where do I come from? I mean, I come from the SmartLogic acquisition, so I've been looking at data, metadata management, data platform for many years, and working with MarkLogic for many years as well. I mean, pretty much since 2014, when Semaphore started to be used by MarkLogic customers, and we started delivering projects together. I formally took over the product management team of MarkLogic nearly 2 years ago now. And within Progress, I run the product management and engineering for MarkLogic and Semaphore. So quite a broad mandate, but a really interesting one. Building the data platform, building on the data hub that you all know, looking after MarkLogic Server, looking after Semaphore, and all of the developer experience associated with that. So it's a really fascinating job, actually.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so I think the first place to start really is it's been about a year, I think, almost to the month since the Progress acquisition of MarkLogic. So really, I was keen to hear your thoughts on what the impact of that has been and what you think that will affect in 2024.
Sure, you're right. Almost exactly a year, 7th of January. So what has been the impact? It's actually been a great journey. The rationale for the acquisition is something that was, from an industrial perspective, completely making sense. I mean, the combination of the different products to further enhance the data platform, and it's interesting in the way it has played out in both directions. From a MarkLogic perspective, it has strengthened the offering, given us additional options to deal with data in different ways. I mean, the addition of Corticon, for example, for business rules, looking at data direct for ingestion, looking at and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later in this call. The developer experience, so fast track built on Candle UI, all of those things. So very complementary technology that are expanding the capabilities of the data platform that we're building. And and it is the same story, true story in the other direction as well, from a progress perspective, bringing together the different assets they had in the data space, allowing essentially an end-to-end user experience. And I think that's something we've talked about in previous webinar, I know, but it is very important. I mean, a lot of projects, a lot of data initiatives in enterprises are really struggling because of the state of play of technology. If you look at, well, the inordinate amount of projects in a data space that are failing, often they're failing very early on in the plumbing stage, because acquiring data from a incredible number of data sources. I mean, organizations have hundreds of data silos nowadays, all with different schemas, different applications on top. So acquiring data from all of those systems, understanding data, harmonizing data, enriching data, and then leveraging the value contained in that data is hard. I mean, there are many stages, many steps in that workflow. And as I said, I mean, plumbing is the number one issue, that first hurdle in that journey, and many organizations fail there. Because if you start doing a little bit of DIY, taking open source, taking various commercial components, you end up with a very distributed environment, no clear responsibility, no clear governance, etc. And it makes it really hard. And often projects don't even get to the second hurdle, which is solving the data quality problem. And then move on to leveraging that data and getting value out of the data. So that objective, that vision of an integrated end-to-end solution, where you don't have to think about a plumbing, where the data quality and data prep tools are available for business users, and where data exploration and discovery is made much simpler, is really a fantastic accelerator for our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about leveraging the value from that data. What do you think MarkLogic leads in that? What are we trying to do to help unlock that for our customers?
Well, there are several aspects to that, actually. I mean, first of all, there's the scope of data itself. Often, organizations, when they think data, they think relational, they think very small percentage of the data. Often, relational nowadays is, I think, latest IDC figures is about 20% of data. So 80% of the data is not leveraged. With MarkLogic, you can leverage the entirety of your data universe. So already a massive thing here. Now, if you think about data usage, there are some BI and analytics type use cases that we support, I mean, reporting and data exploration and all those things. And we're bringing in very new and interesting capabilities to that area. I mean, clearly we're carrying on doing work on Optic, but I think there's a very exciting feature coming up. Unindexed TDEs, things like that are actually game changer for our customers. Why? Because I imagine, given the list of participants, a lot of you know what TDEs are. There are ways of presenting essentially rows out of your data following templates, but they require indexing your data according to the way you want to extract that data, or according to the way you want to project that data. With an indexed TDE, you can that at runtime, without reindexing your data. Yes, it's slower, clearly, because that's not indexed, but it also means for analytical use cases, you've got a lot of flexibility. I mean, using far less memory, you can do just-in-time decision on what data you want to extract, etc. So it is actually the sort of things which, from a use case perspective, opens up complete new areas of analytical projects, I suppose. Another typical data consumption pattern that we're seeing in project is data exploration. Analysts looking at data analyzing the data, making decision out of the data. And that's where investments such as Fast Track that you've seen in the last community forum really comes into play. His ability to explore across geospatial dimensions, time dimensions, graph dimensions, and of course search, because most of our user experience starts from search to slice and dice the data before visualizing it. The one area actually that I suppose I cannot not mention, of course, is generative AI. I imagine probably everyone on the call is in some ways or forms playing with generative AI. And that's also for us a really important area, because if we've solved the data hub implementation, let's call it the data fabric actually, because we're storing the data, we're managing the data. Generative AI becomes a very natural conduit to deliver that data to end users. We are able today, with some of the projects we've delivered in the last few months, to interact really well with generative AI projects. We've got a retrieval augmented generation in the plugin for LangChains that's actually published with a Python library. And if you haven't already, I invite you to play with it if you're doing prototypes or even putting projects in productions using LLMs. But we're also looking at vector capabilities in MarkLogic itself. When it's something that we researched towards the back end of last year, we're currently doing further implementation efforts on, and the view is over the summer to come up with a technical preview release for those of you who want to join an early access program.
That sounds fantastic. And for those that are just fairly new to that Gen AI journey, perhaps you can just give a very, very high level overview of what that RAG approach is and where MarkLogic fits in it.
Sure, no, absolutely. So LLMs, so language models themselves are trained on incredible amount of public data. Fantastic if you have a query about 14th century poetry. So in our personal space, in our own time, we get some fantastic results from asking questions to ChatGPT. Within our corporate ecosystem, we're interested in the meaning of sales figures from last week, or how a particular molecule is driving certain outcomes in one of our trials. So not data that is available to ChatGPT or to any of the other systems like Claude, etc. Retraining those systems on private data is extremely costly, extremely risky, and extremely expensive. Well, the amount of effort, the amount of tuning required is tremendous. So the alternative is to use the LLM as a way to interpret data and respond, but inject the data at runtime. And that data injection is what's called the retrieval augmented generation. That's when essentially you do prompt engineering, you push the context of your data into your question, so the LLM can analyze the data you're submitting, summarize it, and provide you with an answer. So in that context, MarkLogic acts as a long-term memory, essentially, for those generative projects. So it's a search problem, it's a document similarity problem, it's a relevancy ranking problem. So we can provide LangChain or any other pipeline that you choose with the relevant contextual data to fabricate the prompt, inject it into the LLM environment, so it is analyzed, summarized, and you get the response. Clearly there's more to play than just that, because there's also the ontology part to analyze the requests. There's the analysis of the results themselves to try and root out hallucinations. So there are different parts of this, but at a very high level, it's about providing enterprise knowledge in the context of generative AI projects.
Yeah, I'm fairly new to this myself, but I find it absolutely fascinating. I know we've done a couple of other webinars earlier or back end of last year, and I think there's some more to come this year on that topic and some of the examples that we've been working with our customers. So if there is
Yes,
something,
we've done one indeed on RAG itself, and we've done one on ontology enrichment.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
and actually, I mean, maybe tying those two together, because I don't know if we did that actually on those calls. If you look at the standard RAG approach, it's providing documents and document fragments to the LLM. Many of our customers have actually spent time to develop taxonomies, to develop ontologies. And if you take those ontologies and the documents, or the facts extracted from the documents, what you have now in MarkLogic is a true enterprise knowledge graph. And that gives us the opportunity to no longer just feed documents and document fragments to the LLM, but actual knowledge. So that whole concept of returning, doing prompt engineering based on facts, ontological elements, and essentially a knowledge graph, subsection of the knowledge graph, is a really interesting development as well. If there are questions, I don't know if there are any questions coming in. I'm just looking now, but this is a really, really interesting area, and we've got loads of research going on there. Because, I mean, yes, vector search is really important, and it's a critical element that many people see, or at least talk about in the market. But actually, it's not the only one. I think, I was talking about search earlier on and how everything starts in search. Well, starting your RAG experience, your LLM experience, your GenAI experience with search is also really important. I mean, vector search in itself is not sufficient often. And in most research papers out there are pointing at a two-stage approach, where you do classic search, typically BM25, and actually we've got BM25 ready now in MarkLogic. It will be available in the next release. So, combine BM25 natural search with vector search, and the precision and recall, for the F1 score for your RAG is much better. Well, I don't know. I'm just checking the number of technical people on the call. Quite a few. So let me explain why, actually, because that might be of interest. If you do a pure vector search, pure similarity search, and your data is typical knowledge base, for example, typically you want to have a lot of overlap between your entries. I mean, the entries will be monothematic and they'll be relatively unique. If you try to do similarity search, you'll end up with a forced similarity. It is similar enough according to the vectors, but actually documents are not that close. So if you start doing pure vector search, vector similarity to feed your prompt, you'll end up with things that are quite distant, and you'll have to start applying fairly hard cutoffs. If you combine natural search with vector capabilities, the original corpus would have been essentially assembled by your natural search, and that the documents that are being considered as document fragments are actually tightly coupled. They're covering the topics that you're looking at. And that brings me to topics and data prep, which is another really, really important aspect of what we offer in MarkLogic. If you use your data as is and expect to put it in the vector search environment, or a traditional search, and feed a RAG project, feed an LM project with that, you're likely to see that your similarity isn't that great. The clustering isn't that great. Why? Because the documents very often are not written properly. Let's call it what it is. I mean, the chunking, the analysis of which parts of the document are relevant is hard. Topic matching, what the document actually means, what the facts in the documents are, is really a really hard part of solving data quality problems in generative AI projects. And that's something that in MarkLogic we've done for years. Because actually data quality challenges in generative AI projects are no different than data quality challenges in making good decisions in dashboards, in analytics, and other type of machine learning projects that we've done for years.
I agree. And I think that brings us on quite nicely to the Progress data platform as well, and how the broader suite of technologies can play in that. Perhaps you could just talk through your thoughts and the direction of travel there.
Sure. I think I've covered half of it already, but never mind. So at the core of it, MarkLogic, of course. MarkLogic with a data hub implementation. So Hub Central, a key element to that for all of the data normalization, harmonization, all the merging rules, etc., that we'll all know and use. Combined with Semaphore for some of the fact extraction, subject classification, etc., combined with Corticon for business rules management. So here you've got a full-on data analysis stack now with the semantic aspects and the business aspects. Upstream, a data acquisition, data ingestion stack with Data Direct, and for us that's actually a really interesting development in the platform, because most projects so far, when we're using NiFi, when we're using some of our own tools like MLCP, etc., when we think about data, we think about natural schemas, the data source, the underlying database, or the underlying file system, etc. But if we look at the implementation patterns, for most of the projects, it's helping our customers move from a app-centric architecture to a data-centric architecture. So what we're actually connecting to often are not databases, they're apps. And with Data Direct, we're actually able to use the APIs of those applications as data sources. So we're not attacking the schema, if you want, we're attacking the object level representation. And that means that we're going through the business processes, through the rules, through the validation. We're not getting raw data, we're getting the enriched data or the reharmonized, restructured data. And that's really important because we can do that. They're both for on-premise enterprise systems that are otherwise really hard to understand, like SAP, etc. But we can also do that for cloud services. So we can consume data from cloud services within the data platform as well, which is a really interesting thing, because it allows really hybrid model, consuming cloud data that's potentially not owned by the organization, but comes from partners, regulators, etc., as well as the on-prem data, or private cloud data, and bring it all in one data fabric.
Yeah.
And together with that, actually, and sorry to cut you off here, I think we're also seeing a really interesting extension of some of the personas behind the users of the platform. I mean, clearly we've got the developers, and the developer community is growing every day, and that's fantastic to see. And some of the new initiatives around things like fast tracks are clearly aimed at our developer community. But we've also got a growing data science community and data steward community. People that are working with the data, on the data, understand the data, have a vested interest in contributing the data to the data fabric, to the data hub. And that's actually a part of the community that we're building new interfaces, new workflows for as well. And I think in the cloud platform coming up later in the year, we've created a lot of new interfaces for those. One additional persona that we don't necessarily often talk about actually is a data citizen. We're seeing more and more projects, more and more environments now where we have data citizens, people that don't own the data or don't own the systems, but have so much interest in the data that they take on themselves to do. I was talking to one the other day. It was actually a medical practitioner, so interested in his research and the research of others that he actually started analyzing the data in R, connecting it to MarkLogic, connecting it to Semaphore, playing around, trying to extract meaning. And we're seeing more and more people who have a not necessarily educated in data, but with such a vested interest that they're
Mm.
educating themselves and they're making a really big difference in the organizations they're in. It's great to see.
Yeah, and I think obviously MarkLogic's strength there of having all of that data in all of those shapes and being able to query across all of it is pretty unique.
Exactly.
Yeah. A couple of things that I wanted to pull on. We've mentioned a few times Fast Track as a product. Obviously, we did an initial demo on the last community event, but for those that didn't attend and those that haven't heard yet, perhaps you can just give a quick overview of what Fast Track is and what value it's going to bring to customers.
Sure, absolutely. Fast Track is a React-based toolkit to expose the data that's contained and managed in MarkLogic. Why have we taken the step of building our own library, our own collection of widgets? Simply because traditional BI and analytics tools are fantastic for what I'd call unidimensional data, relational data typically. If you think about the multimodal capability of MarkLogic and the value of looking at data through the multimodal lens, there's not really a tool out there that allows you to do that. So we've assembled a best-of-breed library for geospatial, for time series management analysis, for graph exploration, for relational data, grids and pie charts and all of those things. So we've brought all of those things in, and many of those come from Progress' own technology in Kendo. And we've packaged that with a full-fledged data access layer for MarkLogic. So you don't need to think about how to get the data, how to orchestrate the data. You just need to think about your user experience. And the idea is to really cut down on the effort required to build a modern data application on top of MarkLogic. We had a couple of really good pilots with customers so far, where the amount of time required to build a really nice looking application was cut, slashed to almost nothing. I'm exaggerating a bit here, but I think in one case it went down to about, I think the implementation was about 3 weeks, which is unheard of for a full-fledged application.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I've seen a couple of internal demos, and I'm really excited about the possibilities that Fast Track's going to bring to our users and how quickly it's going to allow them to start adding value. I mean, I think MarkLogic's always been known as being pretty agile on the data front and the things you can do with that. From what I've seen, Fast Track now gives you the UI to get into that data and start presenting it and getting value quickly as well.
Exactly.
What I'd like to just shift slightly the thinking then to other advantages for the customer. So often our customers have challenged us and said, what about the plans to simplify ownership of MarkLogic, the management of MarkLogic? A lot of the people on the call today will be MarkLogic customers. So what have we got planned through 2024 to help with those people that have already have MarkLogic and looking to manage it?
Okay, very good question. So managing the cost of ownership is indeed a very important theme. It's in fact one of our program increment theme for MarkLogic. And for those of you on the call who've never heard program increment coming out of a MarkLogic product manager or someone from engineering, we've recently adopted SAFe, so the scaled agile methodology in engineering. So everything is now organized in program increment and PI for short, etc. So one of our PI objectives, so one of the highlights for the upcoming year, essentially, or 3 months at least, is managing the total cost of ownership. And we're planning to do that in different ways. I mean, the first one, of course, is helping you reduce your operational costs. And some of that comes in the form of platform support. Graviton CPUs, for example, our craze on AWS and Azure. It is a support we're adding to MarkLogic. The work is really well underway, and that will come out in MarkLogic 12. Likewise, modernization of the is a base of operating systems that we support. And some of it is for TCO consideration. Some of it is also for security consideration. For example, we're embracing UBI for our containers, because that is one of the RN Bank standards. For those of you who know the RN Bank government hardened container standard. We're also doing a lot in terms of manageability and auditability, ensuring that MarkLogic is easier to monitor, to manage, and to troubleshoot. We're also looking at scalability and performance, improving elasticity of environments and combining that actually with the manageability and auditability, because we're seeing clusters now that are reaching sizes that we've not seen before. And the challenges associated with the monitoring of those clusters is, well, important, let's put it that way. I think, and ensuring that we provide you with the right metrics, the right log messages, the right methodology to look at them, to analyze them, to understand them, helping your operational teams is a really important thing. So one of the things we're doing in that area actually is investing in open telemetry support for better integration with all of the monitoring stacks out there. So that's just one of many initiatives that we've got going on in that specific area.
Okay. And is there anything we can, you mentioned it earlier, our cloud offering, is there anything we can give some people some highlights on what that's going to look like?
We certainly can. So we've got, in terms of services, and managed essentially services, we've got two things underway. One, which is pretty advanced because it is in pilot at the minute and we've got customer piloting it. It's our Progress Data Cloud. So MarkLogic plus Semaphore plus other Progress products coming online together in an integrated fashion in Azure. So it's all it's a managed service, fully hosted. And what is interesting actually is we are delivering that without compromising on the features. I mean, clearly there are additional layers of security, authentication, API management going on, but you'll have access to all of the capabilities of all of the products that we're exposing. So full MarkLogic capabilities, full Semaphore capabilities. And in the same way, actually, we are exploring and designing at the minute a managed database administration service. So this one may or may not go ahead. I mean, we're still in design stage. So actually, if you are interested, please reach out because your input will be really valuable in designing the service. But the idea is that we have many customers who are interested in receiving help in managing MarkLogic, but are not ready to move to the cloud just yet. Or if it's a cloud move, it will be a private cloud, not a SaaS or PaaS type initiative. So in that case, that MDBA service we're designing at the moment will be perfect. It's essentially remote hands to monitor, manage, and administer when needed the MarkLogic cluster. I mean, we're not planning to expand that to applications. That will still be under our professional services offering, but managing the infrastructure or the database core itself, if you want, and the Semaphore core itself.
Absolutely. Having seen some of the early look at those things, I think they're going to be really interesting to our user base. I know the CSMs, that's feedback we've been hearing for years, that people have been looking for improvements to the monitoring management and cloud offerings. So we're really, really excited to hear about that and see what we can do in 2024. I think that's, time is flying fast. Are there other particular things that you would like to have talked about that we haven't had time to discuss yet?
Absolutely. So there's one thing that I really wanted to insist on and actually close. Use that as a close on this interview, actually. And it's inviting everyone, all of you, to contribute. One of the things that Progress has done over the years is really nurture its developer community and its customer community. So there are several initiatives going on, ranging from the ideation portal, where you can go and register your interest, suggest ideas, feed in our product roadmaps. So that is we're adding essentially ideation portal for MarkLogic and Semaphore. All of the other products from Progress are already on the ideation platform, so you'll see it's a vibrant community there. We're also launching our CVP, our customer validation program, for early access to new releases, to new features. And the idea is, you submitted an idea, please come and try it. Right? It is very open, and on Open Edge, actually, one of the other Progress products, I've even seen customers who submitted ideation ideas to even come in sprint demos to see how the progress on the features was coming along. So it is a very open, very active community, and I really invite you to participate. I think it'll give us more visibility of what you need, and we'll give you more visibility of where we're heading with the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that are really interested in that, we've got a slide in a minute with all the links on how you can get to the new ideation platform. Very exciting though. Yeah, I think that's going to be really great to hear the input from customers and giving them an opportunity to see that as it grows. And I think that sort of brings us back to where we started as well. A couple of these things, as you've already mentioned, are Progress platforms that already exist for existing products in the Progress portfolio. And for me as a CSM, I think it's been great to see us adopt some of these great initiatives that are going on. And one of the benefits of Progress by MarkLogic is that we get to participate in some of these platforms that are available.
Absolutely. Yep.
So with that, thank you very much. What I will like to do is a couple of things. First of all, we've got our community feedback. So there is an opportunity for you to talk about what we've heard today and for you to give us feedback on the community events that we're doing, and particularly this one. So for those of you, please take a snapshot of the QR code and go and give us your feedback on there. But then what I want to do is hand over to Phil to see if there's been any questions coming in the meantime, and anything that we would need to cover off. Phil, anything that's come in?
Yeah, there's one question so far from the audience I think might be able to cover off, which is, what's the plans to support Debian Ubuntu family after the CentOS demise? I know that there's been a lot of tickets raised, and I can see a lot of customers are interested in this, so maybe we can just sort of cover that briefly.
So, yes, the CentOS story has been a very complicated one for our customer base, and actually for the industry, generally speaking. We're actually staying with the Red Hat family. And we're developing for Red Hat Enterprise. And that means that it will give us, to a degree, and we're testing and validating some of that and relying actually on the statements on the compatibility with the Red Hat family. So we're talking about AWS Linux, we're talking about Alma, we're talking about Alpine, we're talking about a number of those, and in the container world, UBI. So it will be Red Hat family for the entirety of the products.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting. Like I say, I think the audience there is probably reflective of what we've had from conversations with customers. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and maybe just let me add one little story here, because the conversation of Red Hat versus Debian versus Ubuntu, was actually a very active and very passionate one within engineering. And the decision factor in the end, and that's a very important consideration, is Iron Bank, which I mentioned a bit earlier on, which is the container repository for the federal government. Towards the middle of last year, did a full review of authorized operating system and certified operating systems, and the only one left for Iron Bank is UBI. So that conversation of Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat based was cut very short when the government decided for us, pretty much. But actually, I mean, if it is, if you look at the hardening requirements and all of the configuration requirements in the certification process, yes, that's what the government wants, but actually the foundations are extremely aligned with NIST, with all of the best practices in industry as well. So we're expecting that to have ripple effect and UBI to actually be embraced more and more in a container world, actually.
Yeah. No, great. I don't think we've got many other questions that have come in.
Okay.
Please do, though, check out some of the links that we've put in the chat. We'll also share this presentation where we've got the QR codes there. The community feedback would be great, because we want to know what you want to see coming up in future sessions. We just had another question come in. The government refers to the US, I presume. And I think that's
federal standards, US federal standards, indeed.
Yes. Do check that out. I've also put some other content in there that might be useful from some of the conversation that Matthieu and James had. We'll make sure those are available on our community forum. So if you've got any, if you want to check that out, sign up to the community forum. But by doing that, you're able to access the ideation platform, so the ideas portal. So,
okay, cool. I see another question coming in, actually. Let me grab it, because I think it's an interesting one. And it's about the developer community, developer reach, and finding developer skills, MarkLogic developer skills for projects. And it is indeed a really interesting topic. There are 3 dimensions that we're considering and investing in. The first one is training. Training is part of our community engagement. We're going to carry on offering training and extend our training offerings, extend our documentation offering, extend our tutorials, our how-tos. So onboarding new developers is certainly part of our strategy and part of our developer experience generally. The second aspect is changes to the application platform, the development environment, etc. I talked about Fast Track. Fast Track is a fantastic example of where, in the past, when you would rely on highly trained MarkLogic engineers to build an application, because we didn't have a delineation, I'd say, of responsibilities, or kind of a clear tiering in the stack. So someone writing front end would have to understand how to fetch data and therefore have a MarkLogic experience. With the new Fast Track offering now, you can have fully operational full stack developers on the MarkLogic project. I mean, clearly you still need MarkLogic trained engineers if you think about the entity model, if you think about data alignment, if you think about the core management of the cluster, etc. But for application, you can start building, assemble teams from a much more varied background. And again, that's one solution to scaling out projects on MarkLogic. And the third dimension is a partner strategy. We're going to really accelerate and increase our partner engagement. Some of it would be service delivery partners, people that are trained on MarkLogic and can help you on delivering projects and implementing projects. Some of it may be more on the architecture side, more on the outreach and visioning, solutioning side. But our partner ecosystem is definitely something we're investing in, and this is going to grow and change over the course of the year. So hopefully those 3 dimensions address how to scale on projects.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Thank you.
And if you are looking for opportunities in MarkLogic, or you're looking for resource, one of the great ways to do it now is with the new community hub and forum. I've already suggested today, actually, someone post an opportunity in there, just because it was quite interesting. I think that might be interesting to some of the people there. So please do sign up, because you'll see more of those in the future.
Absolutely, and I think that touches to what Matthieu was saying earlier. We really want you guys to come and join in, come and take part, come and participate, and give us your feedback. And I think we've already talked about some of the ways that this year you will start to see that bubble up more. So a couple of things that I wanted to make you all aware of. We got some events coming up in February. On February the 7th, we're in Paris at the Progress Roadshow. So if you're interested, you're in that region and you want to come along and hear from us, please do reach out to us, and we will certainly make sure that you have invites to that. We're also at the Advantage DoD event in Washington for those of you that are based in the US and working in the security industry. We'll have people on site for that. And at the end of the month, we'll have our next community event, which, just like this one, is a virtual event open to anybody. So please do come along and hear the latest. We touched a couple of times on the ideas platform. So there is, as we said, a progress-wide ideas platform for all of our products, and now MarkLogic and Semaphore are included in there as well. So please do go on there, have a look at some of the ideas that have already been posted, add your comments, ranking, and please add some of your own as well. We really want to hear from you to help shape where we go in the coming years. And all of this can be accessed through the community portal. So if nothing else, please do go along to the community website and sign up. You can browse around without signing up. You can see all of the content on there. But if you want to interact, you want to like, you want to post, you want to get involved, you can go through the sign up process, get a Progress ID, and start interacting with the rest of the forum and the rest of the community. And we would really love to see you on there. Lots of people from MarkLogic are looking at those forums all the time. I've seen some great answers on there already. So if nothing else from today, please take away the link to the community portal, sign up, and hear the latest from there. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much to Matthieu for taking the time to speak to us. Thank you to all of you who have taken the time to listen. And we look forward to seeing you at our next events.
Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Very much.
Bye-bye.
For those of you coming to the 7th of February, see you in Paris.
See you then.